Well, quite frankly, it's a situation where Tai Ing-wen is expected to win. As said, there's a tremendous amount of polarization. But, the real question is what happens afterwards. You have a situation where the DPP is fighting economic gravity. Their, exports to China are going down. Their imports are going up. It's not a relationship that can be, just cut off 10%, over 10%. Of the people working in Taiwan work on the mainland. And on the other side, you have this kind of political fear-mongering that's going on, this kind of anti-infiltration bill that was passed on December 31st, obviously aimed at stoking these kind of fears of the mainland.
Yeah, as Ryan mentioned, Tsai Ing-wen was not very popular in recent months, other than the economic piece of it. What are some of the main issues, voters are looking at, other than economics and the Hong Kong issue?
Well, I do think it comes down to economics. She just hasn't been able to show any kind of leadership in this area. She doesn't have a plan for how Taiwan will, in fact, go forward. I mean, it's an elephant in the room. You can't just say, well, I don't like China, I'm not going to cooperate with China. So she's always skirting this line where she's saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but there's no substance to it. The United States cannot replace the mainland in Taiwan's economy. They're very heavily export-oriented. So I know, we can talk about issues on a local basis in terms of governance and things like that, but really the larger picture is this economic piece.
What will the outcome be, depending on the outcome rather, do you think that will have any impact at all on current cross-strait relations?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Beijing is not going to be happy if Tsai Ing-wen gets up there and starts talking. If she does win, and if she gives a victory speech that starts talking about moving towards independence, you're going to see some, sharp actions from Beijing. Up to this point, it's been mostly carrots, trying to help young Taiwanese find jobs on the mainland by offering them support, housing, etc. But, you could see the other end of the stick coming out and then saying, look, if you really feel your administration cannot get along with the mainland, that might have economic consequences. I think they've been holding off on that, but at some point, Taiwan has to be reminded that, as I said, the economic gravity is overwhelming. They cannot float on this idea that, they can be afraid of the mainland forever and that somehow will sustain them economically.
Einar, well, as we're speaking, we're looking at live pictures now of Taipei. If we can go back, people are already lining up to vote to the polls. What do you think turnout is expected to be? We're hearing from media reports that it could be high, but how much of that will play into the outcome of this vote?
Well, I think for the first time, you're going to see a very strong contingent of people flying in from the mainland into Taiwan in order to vote. There's been a very, very strong reaction. I've seen it here. I don't know that it'll move the needle in terms of the 19 million eligible voters, but I wouldn't be surprised if you start getting around 70%. There's a very, very, as I said, very polarized. Those people who favor a relationship with the mainland for economic and cultural reasons feel very strongly that the country is moving the wrong direction. On the other hand, you have young people who just have been, they've been conditioned to believe that anything to do with the mainland is somehow wrong. Ironically, when they're looking for a job, the mainland is really the #1 place to go.
Look, we know that, especially here in the United States, that polls, political polls, exit polls can be wrong, not to rely on them. But what is your prediction? And let's take the polls out of it. Do you really have a sense that Tsai Ing-wen will come out on top?
Well, it's quite possible. I don't want to influence, make a prediction that's pushing this one way or another. I do believe that there's going to be a very strong turnout from the mainland. It's just right now, if you start looking at the polls and the amount of propaganda that's coming out of Taiwan, which could, in fact, be false, They're predicting that the DPP will win. But, you know, as we have seen in a number of elections, it's quite possible if people go to the polls and vote the way that they feel, especially economically, this could be a major turnaround. And in fact, you could see the DPP falling, or at minimum having a very, very, very slim majority, in which case she's going to be hurt, and there's going to be real questions about going forward with the country if it's split.
All right.